Livestream. I am your host, David Lee, and with me is my co-host.
Hi, it's me, Steve James.
Hi, yeah.
Catalyst Wrestling.
Catalyst Wrestling, that's right. Yeah, sorry about that, a little bit of a delay here. Modern technology, could be the weather, could be the rain, could be positive thinking, who knows. So anyway, how are we doing on the place to be today, Mr. James?
We're doing all right. Just finished up my show, Hive Mind Radio, which you can catch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on twitch.tv/HM Radio. A lot of stuff going on there. But yeah, man, just happy to be back here with the Know-It-All Nation and hanging with the Know-It-Alls, man.
Thank you. Hey, it's always a pleasure to have you here. So, let's get into business today. Well, there are a lot of things to discuss for sure, but one such thing I definitely want to go over is, we were just talking about it, so before we get into some of the major things we want to talk about today, because today I definitely want to talk about, whether we're getting too old for professional wrestling, whether our minds are maybe a little too ripe for the professional wrestling these days. But before we do that, you alerted me to something you wanted to talk about real quick. A certain custom title belt, if you will. Steve, would you inform the Know-It-All Nation about what you're talking about in case they do not know?
Yeah, with the culmination of Triple H's 25-year anniversary on SmackDown Live coming up tonight, they released a custom Triple H championship belt, and I have to say, it is bowling shoe ugly. A terrible, terrible design. Oh my god. Like, I don't know why they keep doing these custom titles. The Undertaker one, the Fiend one. I get why they're trying to make money, but it looks terrible. Terrible.
I mean, well, for starters, I think you hit the nail on the head right now. Because remember, with this current time, they're not having live ticket sales. They're not doing house shows. Merch sales is a major inflow. So if they can huff that out to the public, they're gonna do it. And I can't say I blame them for taking a shot.
I mean, but they have the just released a Hogan one, which is the Winged Eagle one with the red and yellow strap. Like they released a Warrior one, which is the Winged Eagle, but it looks like a friggin' birthday cake, a funfetti cupcake. It's too much. It's too much. There's at some point you have to have respect for the design at its core. Of your classic titles. Like, the reason why the NWA is a successful brand right now in its small capacity is literally based only on the fact that people love the prestige of that belt. It has nothing to do with anything else. I mean, sure, they parlayed it into a fantastic product, but from the start, people only knew about the title, and that's what they wanted. You just can't keep doing all that stuff to your belts. Championship title.
Ouch. All right. Let's bring this one thing out, though. I do want to say a quick hello to everybody. So hello, Gundam. Hello, Ben Espinoza. Hello, AJ Envoy. I feel like Romper Room right now, and if you're not old enough to get that reference, well then, I don't know what to do for you. But hold on one second.
36 is old. Young adults are 20 to 25. No, it's not. Whatever. Okay, and yes, I've going gray since I was like probably about 20. Yeah. What happens, man? You live a hard life, stressful life, man.
Yeah, I found from my first gray hair when I was 18, but fortunately, it didn't get too much company. Hello, True Sinister. Good to see you. Hello, Arthur Pryor. I warned everybody on the Twitter machine that we were coming on a little late today. Hello, Forever. Hello, Dale. Doing good. Gundam, AJ Envoy, True Sister. Is it bad time to bring up the Hogan Luger the Albert Hogan Luger? No, not at all, True Sister. Please do. In my Triple H voice, Dave, you were going to watch that. In my Triple H voice, Vin Montana says, Dave, you're going to watch SmackDown tonight. If enough of you guys want me to come on for a live stream, I most certainly will. 2K20 got canceled. No, it just plays like it's been canceled. No, 2K20 is still out. 2K21's been canceled. Not that anyone could tell.
Yeah.
Wow,
Not that
everyone.
anyone
Yeah.
cares either.
Yeah. Everybody's calling out everyone's calling out your age for some reason.
They know I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not like most personalities who pretend that they're considerably younger than they actually are to connect to their fan base. I'm absolutely 100% honest. I saw that. But, yeah, it's just I can't. That's not me. I am what I am because, I mean, what else can I be?
Quoting Popeye there. Ryan Armstrong does bring up the Brahma Bull title. So yeah, in general, like I'll put it this way. Is Triple H? Let's just get this. Let's just get this elephant out of the room. In terms of the list of Hogan? Yeah, I mean, it's really Austin. It's an Austin thing, but then Warrior, Hogan, The Rock, and everybody. Triple H belong on this list.
Does he belong in this list as far as being celebrated or getting his own custom championship?
The custom championship realm. Is he? You know.
No, and here's why. I only like the custom titles when it's a part of the story for a reason and when it makes sense for the character. Like in most recent memory, Daniel Bryan being the Eco Warrior, being the planet's champion. So it would make sense for him to do that from a gimmick and character and storyline perspective to do that. Then that makes sense. Something like Austin smoking Skull Belt. They folded it into the story so it made sense. That kind of stuff makes sense. The $1 Million Man, that makes sense to me. The $1 Million title made sense to me. But as far as like the Brahma Bull title and, you know, all this extra, the Fiend's title, they don't really make sense. I get it. The Fiend's title looks cool to some, but it just didn't fit the character. Didn't really have a kayfabe reason to explain it, as opposed to the other ones.
Okay, how about when the Warriors switched the strap, the leather, the color of the leather? How did you feel about that?
That's fine because that fits him.
Okay.
It fits his character. It fits the fact that he was always neon. He was always, you know, the yellow, the purple, the green, all of that stuff. So that makes sense to me, again, from a character perspective. Now, once that character, well, in the case especially of the Spinner Championship, say, the WWE Spinner Championship, when John Cena had that title, I loved it. I thought it was fine. It fit the character. It made sense. It was a harken back to the Doctor of Thugonomics. But once he lost that title, anyone else picking up that title and using the Spinner Championship makes no sense. Okay. So that's the disconnect. As long as it makes sense for the character, like in the case of the Warrior that you just brought up, then I'm fine with it.
Okay, what about when The Miz took the spinner, but he turned it upside down for, you know, the end for The Miz? Was that still too close?
It's too. You're not getting anything out of it. It's just, oh, cool. It's an upside down W that makes an M. The fact that he was able to do that, to take something that has no meat and give it a little bit of meat on it, is a testament to Miz a little bit, but there's not enough there to sink the teeth in.
$2 super chat from John Stallman. Brock Party, Brock need that spinner belt. Actually, Brock Party, Brock having the spinner belt would have made sense to it. I would have given you that. Thank you so much for the super chat, John Stallman. Dude, you were the man. Thank you for the generosity. Thank you on the Friday generosity. John Stallman with the super chat. Thank you. Now I'm just thinking about Brock spinning a belt.
Make that title. Yeah, make that title look like a boombox. The side plates are the speakers, and then you got the middle plate looking like the boombox. I think it could work.
Yeah, and according to Vince McMahon, apparently, the low ratings are due to lack of Brock.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, the
lack of ratings is just...
Well, yeah, it's a situation. It has nothing to do with that. And somebody made my graduation poster with Nikki Bella on it. Nice, Harry Flynn. Very good. AJ Envoy is... Okay, so, but also, I do want to say, what about when Edge had the rated R spinner belt?
It worked for that moment, but still kind of ridiculous. It only worked because of the feud he was in with John Cena at that time. It was kind of a one-upsmanship. Oh, you think that you're the face of the company? I've been here for so long. I'm going to put my stamp on what was your property. Now it's mine. This company is mine. So from a storyline perspective, it made sense. And notice, when he won it back, he didn't do that. It was just the one time. It didn't. Every time he got it, didn't flip back and forth.
Well, to be fair, that is what The Miz was doing with his feud with Cena going into WrestleMania, and that's what the spinning around was. And he never did it again. I mean, granted, he never got the title back, but if he did, I'm pretty sure it was. So just granted, I'm just saying, Miz got a little more.
Changing the whole thing is different than just spinning the W upside down.
Right.
Had they committed more to the Miz and the title change in that regard, then I would have given it more credit.
AJ Envoy, Arthur's spinning some dirt sheet thing that he's talking about. Anyway, so all right. So and I do want to say for the Triple H belt. Well, I don't think he's on that level. I'm also not a fan of specialty custom belts. I think they very rarely, if ever, work. Even more so than you, am I more reserved on it? But I will say Triple H definitely does not belong on the list. And if he will, I've had the problem with the narrative that Triple H is. They make him into a bigger legend than he's supposed to be. He really isn't. Like, he's not that high on the totem pole of a Rock, of an Austin, of a Hogan. Like, he's nowhere near that stratosphere. He's not even on the same level as Cena as far as I'm concerned. But
sure, he's a manufactured one because they have more control over him because they know that he's not going anywhere. He's invested in that business and that business alone. He's not going to go be a movie star. He's not going to jump ship to another company. He is a WWE guy. He's literally married into that business. So that's why they're trying to push him as a Hall of Fame legendary, one of the top 5 of all.
Yeah, his custom title belt is his wedding ring. But here's the thing. If they were going to give him that belt, I don't see why they didn't. Like, it doesn't look Triple H-y enough. We were talking about that. It looks very just. It's like the old. It's the old Attitude Era belt. Just and with the
it's placed on the logo. The cutout is the cross that he has on his tights and, that he's worn on his jacket and in a lot of his logos. And they've done some detail work, if you see it, like on the leather strap where the snaps are, the logo is there, and there's a picture. There is some attention to detail there. It's just an ugly shape, an ugly title. It's just uncalled for. There's no reason for it. And why not present it to him in the ring? And at least be like, oh, well, here you go, and then bye. You know what I mean? If you're going to do that.
Be surprised if they did. And True Sinister, he did try to do movies. Yeah, Blade 3, something I will always regret watching. But I also think it's weird when you give somebody a custom title belt when they're not actually a champion. Like, that's an odd choice. I think it makes more sense, like, if they get one while they're a champion. Like, if they make a storyline out of it where McMahon goes, you're my champion, and here's a custom title belt to celebrate you, and all this stuff like that. If they make a big deal out of it, but the guy's not a champion, like, he's not, so I think it's weird to just giving him some novelty belt. Like when Braun Strowman got that ugly Greatest Royal Rumble belt for winning. Like, what does this mean?
Yeah, they're making it seem more like a trophy than a title.
Right.
Which I would prefer if they made a trophy, like separate the two worlds. If you make it a prize or maybe like one of those Olympic discs or a medal or something, or a really cool watch or something, you could still sell that on WWE.com. But, I think it don't make it a title because it devalues things, especially when it looks that damn ugly.
I mean, to be fair, though, I think most of the title belts nowadays are ugly anyway. Like I'm not, like,
I like the title. I like the Intercontinental title. If they're all in line with the same design, which is the Art Deco style, I like that. I just don't like the fact that the 24/7 title and the Intercontinental title look so vastly different than everything else. If all of them across the brand had a similar vibe to them, I'm not saying make them all look the same because that's what they're doing right now with the big W. But if they all kind of had similar design ethics, then I would like it.
I also don't like that I get why they do it, and if they have to stick to the specific design, they have to. But I definitely don't like that the Universal title switches from blue to red depending on what show it's on. I think that's silly. But it looked ugly. It looked really ugly as red, and it wouldn't make any sense to be red on SmackDown. But still, I think it sets you up for a dumb situation in the first place. Hello, Natalie.
There's no reason.
Oh, Female president, gentlemen, best behaviors.
Yeah.
Clean up, clean up. Okay, so now on to the real subject I wanted to talk about today, because it actually kind of occurred to me. I've brought this up in passing previously, where I said, like, I do wonder if there is a moment where you get too old, because I know a lot of, and not saying that you outgrow wrestling, because I don't think that's the issue. I don't think that it's a maturity issue, certainly not, and if that's the case, I have no reason to worry, but I'm more talking about the idea that you notice that when it comes to, like, really old wrestling fans, how many do you know? Like, how many wrestling fans can you name in your 60s or your 70s? It seems like at a certain point in time, people seem to bow out nowadays, which I don't think used to be the case, but nowadays it seems to be going that way. So we'll start with that, Steve. Do you think that's so? And how many wrestling fans can you name past the age of 50?
I know quite a few, to be quite honest, but that's because I grew up in a family that enjoys wrestling and enjoyed wrestling. Remember, I started watching it with my grandmother, so it was always around. So family members are big wrestling fans. But as far as the age thing, people aging out of it, I think that's always kind of been like that, because, you know, you have more life things that happen in your life, more things to focus on. You feel you have to prioritize your time a little bit differently when you have kids, when you get married, when you have, by that time you should either be retiring or still working hot and heavy in your 9 to 5. And if you're retiring, you might not want to spend 2-3 hours at home every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to watch wrestling. You want to be out. You want to do stuff like that. I don't think that there's an age cutoff, personally. I don't think that there's an age cutoff where you don't understand wrestling. But I do think that people put that limit on them where they wax nostalgically about a bygone era. But I think that happens with every age group. The best thing, it's always like this. The best thing is the thing that's yet to come and the thing you left behind. People don't ever really appreciate the present until they're past it, which I think is, one, disrespectful to the moment that you're in, and two, disrespectful as a whole to your experience, because you're not watching it the way you should. Wrestling is made to be enjoyed in the context of the moment, on a show-by-show basis, and then you compare the storylines, then you compare the experiences. But you don't go, I'm in this show right now thinking about the future, I don't think it's going to pay off here, so I can't enjoy this moment.
Okay. We got a lot of great comments going on. A lot of people talking. For some reason, a lot of people want to talk about Fabulous Moolah. I don't understand why that's now a thing.
Because she's old?
I guess so. But yeah, and some of you guys are naming older wrestling fans, which is cool. We got Ryan Armstrong with his 830 Dead, still watching, going strong, very cool. And now they are asking, when did you start? As I've mentioned this before, I would say, I kind of always remember. Yeah, I can't name a date because I always remember it,
Yeah, my earliest memory was probably around, I want to say 86, watching it with my grandmother. My grandmother was a big WWF fan. She was a big Bruno. Like I said a million times, if you were an Italian immigrant from New York, you were a Bruno San. He was a religion to people. And mind you, the mecca of wrestling was Madison Square Garden. So they would go to the matches to support a guy who looked just like them. So for me and my family, Bruno was the guy. So that's as far back as I can remember.
Yeah, so as far back as I can remember, wow, doing the Goodfellas thing. Yeah, for me, I've always kind of remember. I mentioned before, like, the earliest memory I have of wrestling is a Dusty Rhodes match. I have no idea who he's going against. I just remember Dusty Rhodes being something that I could remember. Someone I could remember. He stood out to me. But then I also mentioned that, but the first real match, like, I really, really, really remember was the 1990 Royal Rumble, where I was talking about this just the other day on the stream, where it was like, wow, this is not just two people. It's like a whole, like, army of guys. Like, that was the first thing that really stood out as a moment. Before that, like, wrestling was like any other TV show. It was one of several things that was on TV. Like, at that age, I was like, I don't even know if I remembered that you could control the TV or anything like that. It was just that thing that was on.
You had to turn the switch,
right.
It was channel 3 to play video games, yeah.
Right. See, I didn't even have video games when I was very little, but, when It was kind of like I think about this a lot. Like when was the age where this is kind of off topic, but kind of on topic? When was the age where you realized that a movie could be bad? Because I remember as a kid that people would say, "Hey, did you like the movie?" And it's like, "Yeah, it was a movie." Like I liked anything you shoved in front of me because it was a movie. There was a certain age where you're like, "Wait a minute, I think this is a bad movie." Like there's
I know exactly what movie it is. I don't know what year, so I'm actually going to look up when it was made. It was absolutely 100%. I remember we used to have a tradition in my family,
Yeah.
where every Easter we would go to see a movie,
Right.
and we would each get to pick. I'm sorry, I'm typing to try and find it. We would each get to pick a movie. This was your year. This is your year. This is your year. I picked the original Ninja Turtles when it was my turn.
Nice.
But my mom picked Waterworld.
Ah.
Waterworld is the first movie that I saw where I was just like, this is terrible. This is not enjoyable. I didn't enjoy it in any way, shape, or form. That was 25 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I'm 36 now.
Yeah, what year was that? Just
95.
That was
So I was 11 years old. So 11 years old when I saw Waterworld.
Right.
And it was awful.
It was. I have a friend who actually defends that movie to this day, but still.
But the man had gills. Come on. And it was The Postman. They just retold the same movie 3 years later with The Postman.
You watched The Postman, that's on you, all right? That's your fault. That's your
I
fault.
gave him another shot. He gave me Field of Dreams, okay? You got to give Costner a shot again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was called British Robin Hood. Anyway, but that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, wrestling was just wrestling. Like, it was a show. I could remember it. I have memories of watching it and being on TV. But then when wrestling really, I was like, but the opposite of that, when I was like, this is good, or this like really hooked me. Like, it wasn't just something that like my dad is watching. It was something I'm watching or vested in. Was the Royal Rumble, just because it was not like anything I saw. It told the story. It was the one where you can figure out that this was something at stake. Like, there were so many people vying for this thing, and it wasn't even the title. Like, it was something, it was, at the time, it wasn't even that. So you're definitely looking for. So it was that was what really turned it over for me.
it was the first one outside of Hogan Warrior that felt like an event. That felt like WrestleMania. I got it. It was kind of a big deal, but there wasn't an emphasis on the event as much as the Royal Rumble to me as a kid. Because the Royal Rumble is, I'm sorry, and this is inarguable to me, it is the greatest gimmick match in the history of the business.
It's such a good gimmick match that I forget it's a gimmick match until I'm reminded, because they've asked me what's my favorite gimmick match. I'm like, I don't know, like, and like I think about it, like, I don't know, a ladder, and they're like, what about the Royal Rumble? I'm like, oh yeah, right. I'm allowed to say that's an answer I can say.
It has so much suspense built into it. There's so many things that you could do with it. Right. It's just the best.
Yeah, so like my dad and all of his friends, like I remember, like I saw Royal Rumble before I saw Mania. Like, it was one of those things where Mania came on later, like, but it was like Rumble we watched. Like, my dad's friends, I remember, ordered a pay-per-view and we'd go over to his house and we would watch it. But like Mania was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I'm the same way. Rumble is bigger than Mania for sure. Hey, it's Cody Omega. Okay, Gundam's a War Games fan. That's cool.
I disagree. I mean, I get it.
You don't like War Games, really? I don't think it's better than Rumble, but I do like War Games.
It's all right. I think that the concept is conflate. Like, a lot of people give it more credit than it is. It's not. I don't know. Just the concept of it isn't very good, because it's one that isn't always executed well.
Agreed.
The Royal Rumble absolutely is almost always executed well, or there's almost always something within that match that you enjoy. I've never walked away from a Royal Rumble saying the whole thing is terrible. It's been like, I might not have liked the finish, but this piece was cool. War Games doesn't always necessarily have that.
I agree the shift in rules can be detrimental to War Games, but when done right, I think it does work. I think judging it on its best, not its average, but judging it on its best, I think it's still not better than the Rumble, but it's still high up there. The way I like
when you have to take a minute to explain the rules of it, you're not doing a good job. The Royal Rumble, it's quick, it's easy, and you're out.
Because the way I look at it is, War Games works best when it's a blow-off between two factions, two groups who really, truly, genuinely hate each other, shoving them in this cage with no roof is the only way to end these confines. Tell a story. Like, I think Royal Rumbles and War Games are typically overlooked for the storytelling in the match. They're mostly seen as a bunch of people just like doing moves to each other, but if it's done right, there is a story. This year's Royal Rumble with Brock definitely had a story. There was no doubt. Right, like
it's one of the best Rumbles I've ever seen, and that's not hyperbole. It's easily in my top 5.
Agreed. It's not number 1. Number 1's Flair. Matt actually says that's one of his favorite matches. Period.
Yeah, I'm not. It's just probably perfectly booked and well planned and executed on every level so well. Everyone came out of that looking great, even the losers. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. That's probably number 1.
But yeah, so what's up, Samurai Productions? What's up, everybody? Sorry if I've been missing you, Cody Omega. Harry Flynn likes the '95 Rumble. Okay. Or you were saying that as a story. That had a story. It's what was I going to say? Oh yeah, right. So, but War Games, when you're telling the story about two groups that hate each other, and the only way to get them is to confine them. And it has a story. They're telling a story in the match. But the only downside to that is where the Rumble has a benefit, and the add-on to the Rumble actually helped was when they added the title stipulation to the Rumble. That helped the prestige of the Rumble, but it also hurt because it limited who they could put, who could win, really. However, War Games, the problem is, if you have it as an annual event, I'm supposed to believe every year there's two factions that just happen to hate each other and it's been building up. But a title shot at WrestleMania is a timeline formula. It's like, I understand that every year this is going to happen, but having two colossal groups colliding, that's not going to happen every year, or at least it shouldn't happen every year.
Yeah, it feels manufactured. You're like, oh, November's coming or whatever. Like, now it's time for the factions to have the blow off. It doesn't work as well. Yeah. And to answer AJ Envoy's question, do you prefer War Games with a roof or no roof? I like it with a roof because I like the tension of it being covered and you're able to film. It just feels different. The point of having a cage is so you can escape. So you can be kept inside. I think that's really what we've kind of gone away from because we like the optic of people climbing out of the cage. Me personally, there would always be a roof on the cage.
Agreed.
That's though.
Agreed. Same exact thing. All right. $2 super chat. Another one coming from John Stallman. Do you prefer War Games or Survivor Series? Ooh, thank you for the super chat. And that's a good question. Steve, I'll defer to you first.
The classic Survivor Series, 100%. When you have
classic. How many on each team?
I like 6 on each team.
Really?
I like the 6 on each team. I don't like when they do like the billion tag teams, like the 10 on each. So like what was the max that they did that
grand finale? You don't like the grand finale match?
No, not at all. You know, 5 to 6. That's the sweet spot. You know, that's where I think.
Like a poker game.
Yeah, because you have to have somebody who jobs. You have to have people who lose. You have to have. Not everyone can be important in the match. You have to have cannon fodder, for lack of a better term. So 5 on 5, 6 on 6, I'm good there.
We sure can, Harry. Yeah. I like 5 on 5 myself. The grand finale match, if you're not going to like War Games because of how convoluted the rules get sometimes, then yeah, okay, that was the only. Let's just sacrifice everybody just to make sure Hogan and Warrior get over. That was really the only point of it. I like the goofy concept of the grand finale match. Just for those of you who don't know, the grand finale match was they took all the remaining survivors from each team that won, and they put them in a team of good guys versus bad guys. Only problem was there were only 3 good guys: Hogan, Warrior, and Tito Santana. They were going against a whole army of heels. Santana was the only guy eliminated. Then Hogan and Warrior just beat everybody. I thought the concept was cool, but it's also something that they can't do very often. I did think they would have gone back to it at one point in time, like when they had the title up for the Rumble. We had that with Flair, and they did it again. It's something that I think I can't believe. I kind of thought they'd throw it back at least once. I don't mind the idea, especially because it was so overly excessively 80s. Like even though it was the 1998 Rumble, it was such a over the top, like ridiculous grand affair. So that's why I kind of liked it for what it was. No, 3 versus 3, no good.
What was 2000, I think, with Drew Carey and Pete Rose? Or was that 2001, I think, actually? That was fun. It wasn't exactly good, but it was fun. I had fun watching it, and sometimes you need that. You need that. The implementation of weapons was new, and for that year, great. But if you do it every year, I wouldn't like it. But for that 1 year, it was something different. It was something new. I could appreciate it, and then let it be gone.
Okay, a bunch of awesome questions going on in the comment section. When someone comes to our server after being kicked out of another server, it's usually a red. What? Huh? Okay, I don't know. Okay, true censor. Oh, yeah, red flag, bad. I did not personally love the first NXT War Games. Like, it had to have the equation. As I mentioned, this past War Games for NXT was the best one for both sides they had, and the women's one was the best one they've done, period, for me. And, but, like, it was a good one. I actually liked the one. Like, I liked both of them, but the women's was really good.
It was likely the best match on the card. Like, just, that's the one that stands out when you say that.
The handcuff storyline, the story of the match with the handcuffs was brilliantly executed. They teased that the right amount. They paid off everything. The Dakota Kai turn, but this is when War Games has done really well. Like, there was tons of these set pieces all playing into the story. Candice LeRae being, the lone wolf survivor until Rhea came in, and then Rhea got over, Candice got over. It was a huge deal, especially shocking for me because I've been waiting for this horsewoman cash in since forever, and you're telling me Shayna Baszler is going to have a War Games match, but would not Jessamine Duke or Marina Shafir. I was like, what? And then they're like, oh no, you delivered anyway. Like
after the and it was right after the invasion, or right before the invasion of NXT, which would have made sense. Survivor Series, War Games. I think that those should be close together.
Yeah, but personally, if judging again just at their best, I like War Games better than Survivor Series, done at their best, but it is very close. On average, who has a better average? Survivor Series is a better average than War Games. I will say that. Survivor Series, and I will say this past year, nothing great, but traditionally, if you think about it, especially because I don't like triple threat matches, and Steve knows that, but if you look at the past couple of years, for the most part, a lot of the Survivor Series, the traditional matches, have been good. They've been the longest matches on the card, so, by a long shot, it's like going around like a half hour, but they've been good. You've been seeing the thing, and the other reason why I love Survivor Series matches, kind of like one of the reasons I like the X-Men, I mentioned this over on the comic book channel, is that when Survivor Series teams, some people don't like heels and faces being on the same team, but I do, especially for this Raw SmackDown thing, because I like that they don't get along. Like, sometimes one's going to turn on each other in the match. Like, okay, I'm the bad guy, we're enemies, but I will be your friend to represent Raw. And then screw Raw, and then turns on one of the baby faces. I love that shtick. Like, it breeds conflict, and I that's what I like about it. So yeah. What's that?
It could be a pivot point or a catalyst for creating a feud there.
Right. Exactly. And no, I don't mean blood and guts because we haven't seen that yet. And I still maintain Cody should have called it the match beyond. I'm sorry. Just should have been the way it went. See, the first NXT War Games, it's not that it was bad, but the 3-on-3, the three teams didn't care for. I'm not going to. Like, it's to me, having three teams is just a little clunky. But hold on one second.
Clunky because no one could really get their shine.
Right.
It's I don't know. Again, 3-on-3 is not. I mean, the teams in there, they worked their butts off. They hustled. It was good from a technical perspective.
Right.
But as far as the story, it was just lacking, to be quite honest.
Right. It's not a lack of effort. It's just it's awkward because there's always an odd person out, and then also storyline wise, what's the issue here? Especially looking back on hindsight, when we know Roderick Strong is going to join the Undisputed Era too. Like, also in hindsight, it's kind of an odd thing. My other issue with it was that Killian Dane looked amazing in that, but I don't think anyone else really got that much over. I mean, you can make the argument for Adam Cole, but for the most part, I don't think anyone got over other than Killian Dane. Killian Dane was the shine out star, and everybody else was just there.
And I wouldn't necessarily say that he got over. That's
Fine.
Not getting over. He had a spot that was talked about. He had a moment that was really cool. They didn't lay it into anything for him. Similarly to Keith Lee, I don't think that he's over right now. I think that he had that moment. He had that moment in when he first came in. They slow played him. Then in NXT, he started building steam. Then at the Rumble, he had that moment with Brock that essentially made him. But they haven't really done anything with him yet. It's like they're kind of like pumping the brakes on him a little bit as far as giving him the ball to really be him. He's a guy who, if you let him just go, he's going to go. And you have a once-in-a-generation style athlete who's that big, that quick, that fast, both mentally and physically. So when they allow him to really unleash himself and push the creative behind him, it's going to be a sight to see. But they haven't done that yet.
I think they are playing it a little slow, but I do think the current situation might have something to do with that.
Absolutely.
Do you think Keith Lee's in danger of going into Braun Strowman syndrome, or a.k.a. Kane syndrome?
A.k.a. Big Show syndrome.
A.k.a. Big Show,
It's possible, for sure. There comes a point where if you're making your guy this unstoppable monster, at some point he has to not be stopped for a bit. He has to win. He has to be dominant. Like the best big man, and I don't even know if you could consider him a big man, is Brock. He's the way that no one has been booked stronger than he has, probably in the history of wrestling.
Brock's a weird anomaly because, he is big. Don't get me wrong, 6'3" is big, but it's not. He's 6'3", but he looks like he's 7 somehow.
It's like the bigger guys are used to make smaller guys, where in the past that necessarily wouldn't have been the case. They would have just made Hogan, and that's it. They would have made one guy.
Yeah, hey, Gundam, I say that all the time about Braun, which makes me sad. I also kind of feel that, but I don't think this is a new phenomenon, because I also think, Big John Studd, in a way, you can put him on that list. Sergeant Slaughter, I know they gave him the belt, but he was just a transitional champ. Stan Hansen, you can make the argument for, too.
One-man gang?
One-man gang, yeah. Slaughter is a weird case only because they do beef him up as a legend, but if you think about it, he really didn't do very much. I still like him, but...
Pre-rock and wrestling days, he was absolutely a star. Pre-rock and wrestling days.
And he also has... But the G.I. Joe contract was also, big for him to get his name outside of wrestling, but at the same hand, in wrestling, he has one world title that he only held on to. I mean, at the time, this was a short amount of time. Nowadays, it's not that big of a deal. But he only held on to it from Rumble to Mania. Retrospectively, it's very... Yeah, I know he main evented a Mania. I get it, but...
A transitional champion for sure, but I think it's for him what makes him in the legendary status is the moment, is much like the Andre moment of him ripping off the cross or being body slammed. Sergeant Slaughter's moment is burning the Hulkamania t-shirt, the being the traitor. So that moment is what elevates him far more than any accomplishment would have. He could have won the title 5 times, and it wouldn't nearly have been important or impactful as burning that Hulkamania shirt. To me,
guys, I'm not. Like I said, I like Sergeant Slaughter. I'm not downplaying his thing. I'm just trying to mention how he has kind of during his actual run, I feel like he wasn't put there because outside of that Hogan run, he was never really a main event. They never treated him as a main event guy in WWF. My point of the matter is, well, he's achieved legendary status. Kind of, a better example would be Jake Roberts. Jake Roberts never won anything, but he still has a legendary status, and rightfully so. I'm not criticizing. But
so wait. Why do you say that Jake the Snake has more of a legendary status than Sergeant Slaughter?
Oh, I'm not saying more. I'm just saying that he accomplished it without needing titles or main event. That's all I'm doing. Well, I know Slaughter has WrestleMania 7. I'm just pointing out that there's a short list of guys who were able to get that kind of, this is a guy everybody knows, but they didn't need to be champion to do it. You could even say the same thing about DiBiase. DiBiase, there are casual wrestling fans or non-wrestling fans who know who Ted DiBiase is, but he never had to win the title for it. So let me clarify, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right, and for Slaughter, I think the G.I. Joe run was a major part of it.
Oh, for sure. The Hasbro company, the toy line. Just Vince is always a sucker for Americana, for, U.S. versus the dirty foreigners. You know what I mean? For many years, and in many wrestling companies, not just in the WWE, WWF, WWF, it's been around for a very long time. That trope is a wrestling trope that goes back to time, forever. Right. So I think that's why he was always positioned as You can put him anywhere in that. He didn't necessarily need the title.
Two quick things. One, Samurai Productions, give Jake a belt. The biggest surprise for me is out of all the titles Jerry Lawler has won, he's never won a WWF title of any kind. Not even a quick run with the hardcore belt. That one shocks me. So we're going to talk about Jake. No, we're going to start with Jerry Lawler. And plus, with Jake being in AEW, he's not getting anything from WWF right now. But the bigger question, you guys have been bringing up. I did a previous video about whether Ted DiBiase's world title reign should count. And if you think about it, it is technically a dusty finish for a heel, which almost never happens. I should have brought that up in my latest video. But yes, so thank you for acknowledging. We know which side of the line you guys stand on, whether DiBiase's world title run should actually count as official title reign. So John Stallman and Harry, so thanks for chiming in on that. Where do you stand on this, Steve? Should DiBiase's title reign count?
Absolutely. 100% should count.
The biggest clinch for it is, as I talked about in the video, is he defended it. Like, if he didn't defend it, it's one thing, but he had successful title defenses. Like, it's a weird thing that I just don't understand about how WWE works sometimes.
They do strange things, like not counting Chris Jericho's first title. That's weird to me. I think that it's used as a story device. I get it, but still, you got to count those things.
I let Jericho's go because I do believe when they say it was testing grounds, and I look at it that the following year he defeated The Rock and Stone Cold and became the first Universal. So I'm like, that's big enough. It's okay. We don't need to count that first one.
Yeah, that's more than big enough. That's one of the single greatest accomplishments of any wrestler ever, because he's the first and only to do that in the same night. Right. So that's something that if he never won another title again, that would be his calling card for the rest of his career. Obviously, we know he has gone on to have several great title runs, in my opinion. So.
It's true, they don't count Inoki's title either. I did a whole video about titles that they don't count either.
Go check those out once this live stream is done.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so going back to the lecture at hand, which, is just going to be a fleeting background note for today's episode, it seems. When we're talking about this aging thing, because since we've been waxing nostalgically this whole time anyway, let's go with the other part about that I really want to talk about, because, okay, so whether you believe that you can age out of wrestling or not, wrestling fandom, physically in the ring, yes, of course you can age out of it. Although Terry Funk seems like he's trying to prove that you can't.
I know, right?
But when it comes to whether you believe that you can age out as a fan or not, I want to put this out there. When we look at guys like Jim Cornette, who talk about the way the business used to be, and a lot of guys do, and I know there's certain things that me and you talk about the way it used to be. Well, we'll start by this. Where do you feel on that mentality? The old man yelling at clouds, the Jim Cornettes. Where's your standpoints on people who are talking about the way things were versus how they are?
I'm somewhere in the middle, because sure, I have some opinions like that where it's like, man, we should be doing it this way, the way it was, but also, you have to look towards the future and changing things. So I'm somewhere in the middle. Jim Cornette is kind of an extreme, but here's the thing. A guy like Jim Cornette, it has nothing to do with his age. When he was 25, he was still the same way. This is the way this should be done. This is the way that wrestling needs to be, because that's the way I think it is. No matter what the age is.
Yeah, during the Attitude Era.
We're never going back to what it was. It inherently, once you do something, it's the past. So you have to keep moving forward. You can take pieces of the past and make something new. I just think that Jim Cornette's going to complain, or would have complained at 25, let alone 60,000, however old he is now.
Now, I am a big Jim Cornette fan myself, and but you are right. Like during the Attitude Era, for you guys who could remember, he brought back the NWA, the prestige of the NWA North American title with Jeff Jarrett. People tend to forget this happened during the Attitude Era.
Honestly, heard it, because it wasn't impressive. It wasn't good. I mean, Dan Severn was probably the best out of all of them as far as look, but still they didn't do anything for him.
If I'm not mistaken, this played a massive part in getting the NWA library on the network, so you're welcome. I just think you should pay attention it didn't necessarily hurt things either.
Fair enough.
It played a part in it. I don't have the specific details.
To the Brawl for All too, I think, right?
But here's the weird part. For me, Jim Cornette, I agree with about 60% of the things he says. Where like Paul Heyman, I agree with probably 90. but I probably listen to more Cornette than I listen to Heyman. I mean, a major factor is I never know when Heyman's working me. Like, that's the other problem too.
Heyman, the difference between Heyman and Jim Cornette mostly is Heyman is almost always looking to the future.
Right.
Almost always.
Yes. Which is why I'm 90% with Heyman, yeah.
He's always presenting it in the context of what's next. What's next? You can't stay still. What's next? What's next? Sometimes to his detriment, he doesn't appreciate the moment, and it's just what's next, what's next, what's next.
Right.
But with Cornette, he's constantly going to the past. Probably the most relevant or correct statement on the future that he's had is about MJF. He's been like me, a guy since day one who knows that this guy is the star, but he's looking at it only through the lens of, I like him because he comes off as a classic heel. Not seeing some of the new things that he does. The fact that he is a social media savage and a very smart self-promoter.
And so is Cornette, though. Cornette's pretty good with that too. And yes, Harry Flynn, that's right. Yeah, you are right. You are
the measuring stick.
Yeah, you are the measuring stick. But not for nothing, Jim Cornette is definitely a guy who, if he didn't have his command on social media, if he didn't understand podcasting, if he didn't put his name out there on the internet, he's a guy who probably people would have overlooked. I mean, think about similar people to his roles in wrestling history of that time. Your Harvey Whipplemans, or even your backstage people, your other guys like your Lord Alfred Hayes. Here's a worker. Here's several people out there that have kind of fallen by the wayside that nobody talks about anymore. People who are not necessarily known for. I know Jim Cornette has wrestled, but I'm just talking about. I'm trying to find someone in a similar station. That's as best as I got. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, I know they're not great examples.
The pedigree is different because Jim Cornette has managed some of the most famous tag teams and some of the most iconic matches in the history of wrestling during arguably one of the most creative and innovative periods in the history of wrestling, whereas Lord Alfred Hayes...
I know. All right, how about J.J. Dillon? Is that closer? Just give me... I'm
closer.
Okay, I mean, but I'm just trying to say, there are people of similar station as Jim Cornette that don't get talked about nearly as much as Cornette does, but I think it's because of Cornette's ability to work with things. And I've said this before, I sneakingly suspect a lot of things he does is work. Like I think his complaining about the Young Bucks, I think it's work, but
I think he means it, but he understands that the reason why he's doing it is to create a buzz. I think he believes the things that he says, but the reason why he's doing it is to create a cash revenue.
That's fair. Arthur Pryor, look, I don't think there's much difference between MJF and The Miz, but I like both of them. So, I agree with your statement, but I don't dislike one and like the other. I like them both. I think they're both effective at what they do. I do think they turn Miz heel a little too quickly, back to heel again a little too quickly. Like my issue with Miz's babyface runs is I think they just give up on him too fast.
Yeah, for sure. It's the sad part about being really good at your job.
Yeah.
Is they feel like they could put you in any position. Oh, we need to shake something up. We need somebody who we can trust to do this because this guy can't be a babyface. This guy can only be a heel, so we got to put a babyface with him. Who can we trust to get something compelling out of him? Give it to The Miz.
I will say Tommaso Ciampa, now that he's face again, is doing way better with it than I thought he was going to. Like, I kind of thought that after he went bonkers in the head, turned on Johnny, he going face again wouldn't work. But somehow he made it work. I don't get how he pulled it off.
It's the neck injury. It's the sympathy. It's all of the groundwork that they laid with the documentaries and stuff like that. Which, by the way, for anyone who says WWE creative and their stuff has dwindled and it's not as good, go look at some of those frickin' documentaries and that ancillary stuff. Packages, there is not a company in the world that does promo packages and documentaries better than WWE, period. I will take this to the streets and fist fight you on that.
Well, I do agree with that.
Well, maybe David Sahadi over at Impact. He does a pretty damn good job, too.
Shout out to Sahadi. Okay, so now, with that being said, so talking about those guys, and again, whether or not you agree on whose side of the line you are, now, the biggest point I wanted to bring up, the whole point of what I was thinking about this is, I was kind of looking at, believe it or not, the cooking scene, and we talk about this. You know what? I'm just going to tell you. This wasn't a brilliant idea that came on mine. I'll just tell you straight where I ripped it off from. So I was watching. I was among the quarantine. I was watching Tony Bourdain. Yes, I moved. I went from Living Single to Cheers. Now I saw one episode of Living Single last night, and then switched to Tony Bourdain. It's just so you know my viewing.
Wait.
Yeah.
Hold up.
So,
like, do you know him personally? Like,
no.
that you can call him Tony?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know him personally, but I still feel. But anyway, so I was watching Tony Bourdain, and it was the 100th episode of No Reservations where they're in Paris, and they were talking about how the Michelin star system, the old system, the fine dining system, at the time. Now this was years ago, but the younger chefs in France, in Paris, were kind of looking abandoned. They didn't care about getting Michelin stars anymore. They looked at the customer. They looked at the customer had more power. They were saying that people didn't want that stuffy fine dining money, so they spent more focus. Like the upcoming young chefs were doing more comfort food, more dining experience, like looking to that more homey thing, which is actually something America was doing a long time ago, because there was more money being made in comfort food and like just upscaled comfort food than there was in fine dining experience. So long-winded story for this. When we see right here. Professional wrestling, there's a lot of complaining by older folk where we're saying like there's no selling, and myself included, I'm guilty of this myself. People aren't selling anymore. There's no storytelling. People are throwing 112 kicks. They're doing all these flips. They're doing all these dives and all this, and this is not what wrestling's supposed to be. Regardless how you feel about this, my question is it the same thing? Are the customers, the young people who are watching, are they voting with their dollar? If they want to see flips and no sells, if they like this, if they want to see Kenny Omega and Okada, maybe that's the thing. And also, is it not the obligation? The bigger question to me is it not the obligation of the young Turks, if you will, to piss off the old people? Is it not their obligation to defy all of the old guard? Which, sorry, buddy, me and you we're on the other side of that line. Is it not their obligation to make us mad? Are they not supposed to shock the system? Are they not supposed to tear down the old guard to find what works? Isn't that the obligation of the youth?
It happens in every system, in every sport, in every movie franchise, and all of it.
Music.
And wrestling is no different. So I think that, yeah. But for me, it's like, I'm not necessarily, like, while I believe those things, while I think that for me, my wrestling, the way that I want to see it presented for me is right for me, I don't think that I'm ever going to get that again. And then people were saying, oh, it should have been gone back even further. So it's always a generational thing. This happens all the time. During the Attitude Era, people are like, it's not the Territory days. During the Territory days, it's like, where's George Hackenschmidt? You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be a constant thing. It never fails. But I don't oblige anybody or don't, give anybody any guff if they like that. And as a company, your responsibility is to the customer or the demographic that's paying the most money, because it's the business. Right. And if the young people, like you said, are talking with their dollars, then that's the direction as a business I'm going to go. If they like the flippy stuff, if they spend their money on flippy guys, it doesn't matter if I like them or not. I'm going to give the customer what they want.
Right. And that's where I've been standing too. But so now, by this rationale, though, because I know there are certain issues that we stand on, we're both of us do feel like are fans of selling. We think you all just sell moves, and not necessarily. I'm not a big flippy guy, and you're not a big flippy guy. John Solomon, a $5 super chat. Thank you. Another super chat, third super chat of the day, dude. You were awesome, and this one's for $5. Great. John Solomon, thank you so much. John Solomon says, would Vince Russo's goofy gimmick matches work better today with the new audience, or would they still be bad? Ooh.
I think they would still be bad, to be quite honest. It depends.
$10 super chat from Ron Hawthorne, my man. Another super chat coming in from my man Ron Hawthorne. What if WWE dropped traditional kayfabe and made that documentary or reality style the new source of storytelling, similar to what's going on with Jake Maverick? Great question, Ron Hawthorne, and again, thank you so much for the super chat. And Zania, if you're listening, shout out to you too. Thank you, Ron Hawthorne, for the super chat. Wow. Okay, two questions. Going back to John Stallman, I personally don't think those gimmick matches would work. I think they work the same as they would back then. If you did once in a blue moon, like, an axe handle, something on a pole match, a disco ball on a pole match or whatever, you might be able to get away with it for the night, as long as it's not a pay-per-view, as if it's a goof gimmick. Like when WWE does their stupid Halloween batches where it's just food fights, those are stupid, those are terrible, but it doesn't damage anything if you just do it once in a blue moon. But when Mr. Perfect's last match is like an axe handle on a pole match, yeah, that's a problem. They don't work in the long run. It's got to be a very few and far between thing. Then going to Ron Hawthorne, and thank you again for the super chat, both of you guys, for all those super chats, John Stallman. What if traditional documentary style, breaking down kayfabe? I don't think we need to smash kayfabe to bits to make it work, because I think it only works if kayfabe still goes through the motions. Like, we only believe the podcast, the Twitter rants, because we see the storyline on TV. If they acknowledge the Twitter rants and the documentaries and the podcast on Raw, then we'll stop believing that too. I think we only believe the things we hear as shoots because we have some semblance of kayfabe on TV. Steve, what do you think?
I think it's the opposite. I really think that they should bring in more of that stuff. Bring in more of the Twitter, bring in more of the personal videos. I think traditional kayfabe has already changed. I think an augmented kayfabe is the best that we're going to get.
Right.
I think that you have to make, in order for people to care about people anymore, now they have to care about the person behind the person. How many people want to pull the thing back? They want to feel like they're on the inside of something. They want to feel like they're connecting to something genuine. Now, for me, I think documentary style for some characters would be absolutely perfect. Folding that stuff in is important. Getting rid of traditional kayfabe, it's already gone, man. It's already gone. And it's never coming back.
See, hey, Andy Orford, but yeah, going back to Drake Maverick, I do want to bring it up, but that's actually my perfect example of this, because I think the Drake Maverick thing, when it was on social media by itself, we saw it as real, and it was genuine. I think as soon as they put it on NXT, people started beginning, hey, is this a work? Like, that's what I'm talking about. So, like, I think, and even though,
there were people who were doing that before, and they're going to do that anyway.
No, agreed. But as soon as they put it on TV, then you start suspecting it's a work. If it becomes a thing they just keep on social media, if they have a different storyline on the show, then you believe everything you hear outside of the show. If you bring it into the show, people don't buy it as much, is what I'm saying.
I disagree. I think because if you're seeing someone be different on social media than they are in the ring, then you know they're playing a character. Then you see the cracks in the kayfabe. That's when you go, oh, well, this person doesn't really feel this way. If they're posting things like, oh, man, I freaking hate this person, but they're in a tag team with them, it's like, all right, which do I believe? Unless you're working a breakup angle. So augmented kayfabe. Use the reality of social media and fold it into the things that you're doing.
All right. I understand that one. Okay, so now let's get into the chats, because it seems like a lot of good stuff is going. Samurai Production says, now the thing that makes it sad is that they don't focus on selling as much as they do flips and crazy spots. Agreed. NWA is doing a great job of augmented kayfabe, the Instagram and the Twitter and the rest of. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. NWA Power with the Eric Idle commercials and everything like that, they are doing a very good job of
which is crazy, because NWA is seen as the traditional brand,
right?
But they're doing things that are in the future. They're looking ahead. They're taking the Jim Cornette sort of ideals and giving it the Paul Heyman treatment, updating it.
Yes. So. Great. Very, very good point. Great point, John Stallman. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Do want to go back to so the thing about real quick side note, we're going something good, but I do want to address this. So I do like Ricochet. Well, I said I don't like the flippy stuff. I don't like it for the danger factor, but that doesn't mean if you do it, I discredit you as a wrestler. And I've said this before, since Ricochet's arrival, when you look at his stuff in the Super Juniors and all that stuff, and you look at what he can do, I think he's done a good job of incorporating his style into WWE style. I think he's brought it into it way better than I think anyone was expecting, especially his stuff with Velveteen Dream. Yeah, on the main roster, not so much, just because he's not really utilized. But when we see his matches with Gargano, I think he's folded those flippy stuff into a cohesive match better than I think a lot of people were expecting.
For sure, I'll give you that. But that's, again, who is he and why is he doing the things that he's doing? I've said this a million times and I'll say it again. I'm tired of wrestlers who are just, hi, I'm really good at the flipping and I'm really good at wrestling. Like, right. That works for some people. That works for a guy like Kurt Angle because he has the pedigree of an Olympic gold medal. So it makes sense to be, I'm a great wrestler. Brock Lesnar, it makes sense for him because a two-time NCAA champion, UFC champion. That makes sense. For Ricochet, there's no meat to what he is. When you have a lot of people who are doing the same sort of gimmick, like, I'm really good at wrestling, I'm really good at flipping, I'm superhuman, it devalues it. After a while, you get diminishing returns. I want to know about the person. Who is he? Where does he come from? What's his family like? What was his style growing up? All of that stuff. He's still bland.
Well, two things on that one. Number one, if you're going to talk about Ricochet not getting enough character development, completely agreed. I was talking about his in-ring work, but if you want to talk about his character development, he needs to be given more time for that. I definitely agree that they should be putting more into it. I've said this in the past couple of chats where when people criticize someone being boring, I say, well, look at the storylines they get, look at the mic time they get, look at the backstage interviews and documentaries and all that stuff. If they don't get any, then yeah, of course they're going to come across as bland. If they're getting them and he still falls flat, what's up?
He's gotten time. He got a documentary on him too, and it was still bland. Hi, I just want to be good for all the people.
Right.
And
well,
stuff.
I mean, stuff like that I put on booking more than anything else is what I'm saying. Like he doesn't. They don't give him something to do. But either way, let's look at going back to the question though. Doing all this stuff, it falls flat with you. Is that not the obligation of the youth? Is that not exactly what we were talking about? Are these things that are non-traditional, aren't they the things that are supposed to be done to get at you? Would they be failing at their job?
I said for me.
Right.
I'm only speaking for me.
But again,
if people like that,
we're old, buddy.
Good for them. But it's not very good to me. I think it's boring, and you're not getting 10 years from now. Are they going to remember Ricochet, or are they going to remember spots of Ricochet?
But that's my
remember the spots.
But that's my point. Is this not what the next generation is supposed to be doing? Is they not supposed to be triggering these exact reactions in you, or is that not their job specifically? Isn't this the job of the youth to rebel? Because I'm a big real quick before you get to that answer. My thing about it is I look at counterculture all the time, and I feel that we've had a lack of it. I think part of I've said this before, where I quoted the Green Arrow in Smallville, where we have a generation of armchair critics instead of a generation of leaders. We don't get people clashing and going out that. Now, sure, maybe the new rebellion is a digital one, and maybe that's why I feel the way I do. But in a lot of ways, when you're young, you kind of have to go against the system, and that's how things evolve. That's how things progress. So when I look at these things, as much as I'm displeased by it, I'm part of the institution. I've crossed that line. I'm on the other side of it, and maybe when the younger people are doing things that I traditionally wouldn't understand or don't think is a good idea, maybe that's what they have to do. So again, is maybe the flippy stuff supposed to happen? Maybe are the young bucks doing their job by getting at you?
If this is a revolution, it's the weakest revolution ever because it's easily dismissible. Like, it doesn't matter. There's nothing that's paradigm shifting. They're not doing anything that's shifting the landscape. Another company. All right, cool. Like, impress me. No, they're still losing to NXT. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a weak revolution. They're not doing anything. They're not taking it by force. They're not changing enough things. Now, if they went 100%, if everyone went in 100% that new direction, then yeah, but everyone still has their foot in traditional wrestling.
However, I do want to bring up, if I'm not mistaken, I think AEW reclaimed the victory this week. Okay.
They won this week, but I believe NXT won 2 weeks in a row, the past 2 weeks before that.
They did. All right, so weak revolution at that. They're not claiming enough, so if anything, they need to be pissing us off more. The fact that I can still digest that we can still digest and tolerate some of this stuff is bad. We need to really They need to really. They need Jim's head to explode kind of bad. So, but in that case, how about the Firefly Funhouse match and the Boner match from WrestleMania? Maybe
the Boneyard match. Yeah, that didn't piss me off at all. I think that
then they screwed up then because you're not mad.
That's not new though. Like what? People are presenting this as if this is a new thing. Remember the backlot brawl?
Right.
Remember Jake the Snake and the Warrior? Remember Matt Hardy his stuff? Remember the Dungeon of Doom stuff? This is all.
You had me until you brought up Dungeon of Doom.
But what I'm saying,
I know, buddy.
Presenting this stuff as revolutionary and new, right. And it's not. It's just retread.
The Firefly Funhouse match, I will say, is the most unique though, because there was less fighting. It was more cerebral, more internal.
Sure, I'll give you that. I don't think that they're matches. I don't see them as matches.
I don't either, but. Okay, so let's see. Well, I'm sure. Well, okay, so fine. Another super chat. John Stallman representing the Catalyst. The revolution is real. I'm sorry. I read that like Yoda. Catalyst. I just completely butchered that for some reason. Catalyst Wrestling is the real revolution.
Yeah, I would appreciate it if everyone here, if you're a fan of professional wrestling and want to check out a new company, check out Catalyst Wrestling. I am the play-by-play voice of Catalyst Wrestling. Mr. David Lee is a part of Capital Wrestling as well in Catalyst. Sorry, I got to get used to saying it.
I got to get used to it too, buddy.
It's very strange. But having him he stands in the corner a lot. He books a lot of reservations, but yeah, please go subscribe. Check out one episode. Give one episode a chance. Yeah. If you don't like it, hey, maybe it's not for you, but give it a chance.
Yeah. And if you don't like it, then buy a t-shirt anyway and watch another episode. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's right, Natalie. I remember back in the day when it was Capital.
It's Capital. Yeah.
When I was a kid, it was Capital.
Right? When I was growing up, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely check out the segment, and yeah, you true Know It All Nation members will recognize the back of my head. Even though I'm sure you've never seen it.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Tracy Smothers. If you watch this week's episode, there is a promo code to support Tracy Smothers and his battle with cancer. He's doing a t-shirt fundraiser drive. I'm sorry I don't have the information at hand, but I'm sure you can Google it. Tracy Smothers, an absolute consummate professional and legend. We had the blessing and the opportunity to work with him in Nashville. And I will say this, in a room full of young men, he stole the show completely. So if you have the chance to support a great cause, make sure you search out Tracy Smothers and his fundraiser to help him specifically battle his cancer.
Tracy Smothers has had a career full of gems that and noteworthy thing that people don't really think about or discuss as much. And I've always said this too. It's like the joke of the full-blooded Italians, like that, because when WWE did it, it was a lot of Italian-American wrestlers. That wasn't the gag. The gag in ECW was that only Nunzio was, and nobody, or I think Big Sal was
Everyone too. Else wasn't, yeah.
Right, like Tracy Smothers, someone who's very big in the South, very not Italian, was in the group. And then they're like, oh, we're not hitting you with this joke hard enough. Fine, JT Smith. Do you get the joke now? Wink. Right. Trying as hard as they can. I kind of wish I talked to you, Dave. I kind of wish I talked to you
right now.
Yeah, we're talking right now, buddy. But yeah, Tracy Smothers was part of that, which was a great gag, and he pulled off his part in the FBI really well. And furthermore, beyond that, Tracy Smothers is also he's also wrestled the Bear.
It's true.
An actual bear. This is what I mean. There's tons of things that happen in wrestling that I think should be bigger deals, and I just don't understand how come no one talks about these things.
I think they try, and now it's not cool to seem carny.
I get it, but it's like, why aren't these things everyone knows? Like, everybody knows about, or any wrestling fan, like moderate wrestling fan, will tell you about Mae Young giving birth to a hand. But they may not know that Tracy Smothers wrestled a bear. I'm just if you only have X amount of slots in your brain for wrestling memories, me, I'm giving birth to a hand doesn't need to be in there, but Tracy Smothers wrestling a bear does. Like, that's how I think your brain should work.
For sure, Choppy Pee makes it in a lot of people's
right
banks.
Right, but yeah, Ross Sanders would like to know your thoughts on Chris Benoit.
Horrible tragedy and human being for what he did to his family. Fantastic wrestler. I personally can separate the two if it's two separate conversations for me. But I understand how some people don't think it's a separate conversation, and that's fine too. If you completely dismiss his work because of the final moments of his life, that is your prerogative. I like to remember him as the professional wrestler, not the man that ultimately wound up committing that tragedy.
Right, and I bring it up when it comes to music. I said if I was only able to enjoy songs from musicians who didn't do certain things, there would be like 5 songs I could listen to, because like most of the songs I like are by people who've done messed up stuff. So like my list gets really short.
Yeah.
And plus, in professional wrestling, it's like if you're only gonna, Benoit is a separate category, but if you're only gonna judge people by their best stuff, like squeaky clean people, who's left? It's like you better just watch like Ricky Steamboat and like Bobby Eaton matches.
And Sting, throw Sting in there, and that's it.
Yeah, and you're kind of done. Yeah, you don't really have much else to go on.
We have this thing where we think that if you're on TV or if you're in entertainment or if you're a public figure or a politician, that you're supposed to somehow be superior. We hold those people to a higher standard than we hold ourselves. They make mistakes. They have addictions. They have a lot of things. They have pain as human beings. They live a different life. We live a different life than a lot of other people in a lot of professions. So, don't hero worship. Understand that they're people first. If you want to glorify something, glorify the character. But understand the man, the woman, the bear is different than the character being played.
Oh, okay, yeah. Who do you think is going to be the last entrant for the Money in the Bank match? Asked Andy Orford. Good question. Who?
CM Punk. There you go. I'm going to give the internet what they want. CM Punk.
I wouldn't mind, because there are a lot of people thinking that this hacker gimmick is going to be Mustafa Ali. Not necessarily the worst thing in the world if it is, but I would like Mustafa to come back for Money in the Bank. I dig his style for Money in the Bank. Like Money in the Bank, again, well, I like the flippy stuff being incorporated into a story. There are certain matches, well, I will say it lends itself to the slimmer, faster, more athletic types, and Money in the Bank is obviously one of them. So that's a match I kind of want to see somebody like Mustafa Ali in.
Kind of, sure, I guess, but I mean, to fly in the face of that, some of my favorite ladder matches and TLCs are involving guys like Kane and Benoit who didn't
That's fair.
fly off the ladder. They used the ladder as a weapon. So there's two different philosophies and two avenues to take even there. I just prefer a more physical, ground-based with using those high spots for what they're supposed to be. Augment the moment.
I think, well, all right, that's a good point. A good way, different way of looking at it, because I think maybe that's why the TLC matches, the originals, work so well, because you had the Hardys with their high flying, and Jeff having no regard for his own well-being whatsoever. But then you also had the Bubba Rays and Devon, the powerhouses of it. So maybe that's one of the reasons why those matches.
And you had Edge and Christian right down the middle.
Yeah, I was going to say they're pretty much right down the middle. It's like
balance is important with those matches.
So maybe that's why those matches were so successful, because they had a balance of everything. Edge is willing to put himself on the line, but I think he understands his limits more than Jeff Hardy does. But then again, I think everybody understands his limits more than Jeff Hardy does. But so good point. Okay, I want Ali to win Money in the Bank. He almost won it last year. Yeah, well, that's the thing. I would like to see Ali. I think he fits that very well. I don't think he needs to win it just because I don't need to see someone disappear for a while, show up again, and then win something right off the bat. I think that's weird. I think that's anticlimactic.
Especially when he disappeared for a little bit, it was after his momentum had gotten cut off by the surprising momentum of Kofi, because originally what was discussed, or allegedly the plan, was Mustafa was going to be in that spot at Mania with Daniel Bryan, and then Kofi Mania hit. So he doesn't exactly have a head of steam right now. Just coming back randomly after this hacker thing, like he's basically Mr. Robot.
If that's him.
Series. If that's him, design wise, that's what they're kind of maybe winking and nodding to it. But I actually hope that it's a swerve. I hope it's someone different that we're not thinking of. That is a complete surprise that we have no clue who it is.
Today I heard the rumor that it's going to be two people. It could be Mustafa Ali or Chad or Chad Gable. It could just be Chad Gable, or it could be both of them.
Shorty G. See, that's the kind of stuff that neither one of them makes sense, to be quite honest, because there's no groundwork there. Hopefully, they explain why this person now all of a sudden is a hacker. Now, if we knew that Mustafa Ali was a computer programmer in a previous life, you know what I mean, or like before the WWE, then yeah, that makes sense if you tie in the reality of it. But just to be like, oh, well, all of a sudden he can take over our mainframe because he's got a glowy thing in his entrance gear, and this guy's short, so he can reach the Ethernet.
It's going to be Tom Green and GTV. That's who it's going to be. That's what it's going to be. Why do we keep drinking at the same time?
I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
Weird.
AJ Styles is not going to win Money in the Bank. It would be interesting. See, here's my other question. Off topic, but AJ has said he signed his last wrestling contract that he's ever going to sign. I think he's about 1 year into that. If we're going into the final year of AJ Styles' career, what are we expecting from him? Personally, I don't think he'll be heel much longer. I think after he comes back from his WrestleMania match, I think he'll come back as a babyface, because I think that's the way they're going to end his career. Him being first of all, I don't love AJ as a heel, personally.
I prefer him as a heel.
Really?
I think, okay, let me preface this. WWE heel, yes. TNA,
fine.
Babyface all the way. I think that he is a way better and more mature performer. Once he went to New Japan, he went from, in my opinion, a 7 as a total performer to a 9-10 as far as total package. So as a heel, he's been phenomenal. But yeah, you're right. Coming back from the dead, that's got to be a babyface pop.
You did remind me about something though that was asked in the very beginning of the stream. I will bring it up, but yeah, for me, the reason why I buy his WWE heel turn better is because he talks much better than he used to. For me, a heel's got to be able to talk. Unless you're a monster. If you're a monster, you can get away with being quiet. But if you're not like a superhuman size, you probably need to be able to run your mouth a little bit as a heel. But Bobby Roode, I don't think he's available because of being in Canada. I don't think he's able to cross the border. But they do want me to ask you something that Albert brought up on Monday. He said that Hulk Hogan and Lex Luger are pretty much the same guy.
That is the most simpleton argument I've ever heard in my life. One, they're nowhere near...
And the one before that was also said by Albert. Continue.
They're nowhere near the same. One, Hogan can work. He just chooses not to because he doesn't need to. That's one. We've seen that as evidence in Japan. Two, Hogan has a far superior professional wrestling body, while Luger has the more defined and cut body. From a bodybuilder's perspective, Hogan looks more menacing.
And let me stop you right there, because that's what Albert's point was. He said that both of them were just sold on their bodies. That's it.
No, not even a little bit. Hogan had a connection with his fans that the proof is in the pudding.
$2 super chat. Thank you, John Stallman. John Stallman says Albert defends Russo. How simpleton can you get? Very good point, John Stallman.
Quite a bit, because Hogan has done something that no one has ever done, ever. And has garnered that kind of sympathy, one. And two, has been the top draw as both a babyface and a heel for two different companies.
Yes, and that's right, Harry Flynn. Albert did say he knows more about wrestling than Goldberg, so think about it. He knows more about wrestling than Goldberg, and so, so...
Maybe if he's wrestling the opening of his fridge.
it's really cute. The first time Steve and Albert met, they were like, yeah, shaking hands. Oh, hey, like, nice to meet you and all kind of thing like that. And it's like, now as time goes on, now Steve is slowly seeing what I have to deal with on Mondays. Now his sympathy for me is going up.
I think he just says things to get people to rile them up at first, but then sometimes I'm like, man, does this guy really believe this?
He genuinely does hate Hulk Hogan. And as I've mentioned, I firmly believe, Albert, some people criticize me as being off base for my disdain for Shawn Michaels. But if you're going to say which one of us is more out of touch with reality, you got to admit Albert is way further off from the truth about Hogan.
I think it's, yeah. You know what? I'll say that because at least
if he thinks Luger and Hogan are the same guy, I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's which it's so silly. It's not even funny. Like
the only person who
both of them represented an Americana thing?
Yeah, I was going to say the only person who thought they were interchangeable was Vince McMahon, and it was just him with his fingers crossed, really hoping that was true.
And the proof is in the pudding.
Right, he's not.
That's all the evidence you need right there, Albert. It didn't work. They're not the same because if they were the same, you would have been able to transfer that heat right to Luger and off we go with another, huge connection. But you're wrong, Albert. You're saying silly things. It's time to go to bed. Good day, sir. You lose.
Yeah, and like Hogan to me is an anomaly. The person who I thought could have been, ship has sailed, but I've said this before. I think if done right, given the right opportunities, presented the right way, Braun could have been on Hogan level. He's a big guy. He actually is good on the mic. I think people forget that, but he can talk. He is charismatic. He is likable.
The only reason why I'll say no to that, it's just because during his brief babyface runs, when he works in the ring, there's something about Hogan that no one has been able to do at that level, and it's capture sympathy. He's probably the people say Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart are the greatest sellers in the history of the business. Hulk Hogan is the greatest seller in the history of the business. And I'm sorry, I can't abide any other answer because no one has been able to bring people to tears like that on a consistent basis and has made me care about every single opponent he's in the ring with. There's never been an opponent that Hogan has faced that didn't seem like someone who could at least beat him in any given moment.
Which is ridiculous because of how big he is.
Exactly. And you forget how huge Hogan is.
He's 6'7" and 280. You know what's also weird to me? He never really sometimes they build him at 3, but he never, for his size, it's kind of like it is kind of impressive that he never pushed 3 more often.
Yeah.
6'7"
off, I'm sure.
I'm just saying. I know guys who are 7 inches taller than him who are 300 pounds.
For sure.
I always thought it was weird they never built like Samoa Joe as a higher weight than he is.
I think the appeal of him was he was an in-between. He's like a hybrid, a best of both worlds. He's a big man, but he's not.
I'm just saying. I'd see Samoa Joe. I'd book him at 350, if not higher.
I mean, I would book him with a win first. Let's start there.
Oh, well, that too.
Him to win matches.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Let's start there. Then we'll worry about the weight.
Did you see Braun forgot his lines with Braun? Yeah, no, I mean, look, he has forgotten lines too. I'm not saying he hasn't, but overall, forget about the scripted promos. In terms of just being able to talk, there's a weird cooking show that he was on YouTube for Bon Appetit magazine, and he's like when you just let him talk, he is a likable, funny guy. Is what I'm saying.
Him as a person,
right?
Is very relatable to a lot of people. He's very effervescent, but when you put him in the context of he's supposed to be a monster and not a human being, there's a certain level of ridiculousness that comes along with him being, the monster among men and get these hands and stuff like that. Like, you don't need to sell him more than he's one of the, he's one of the world's most strong men ever. Like Mark Henry level strength. Look at that.
Right. And agreed. But yes, so thank you for all this stuff. All right, guys. All right, we're going to call it quits for now. Thanks to popular demand, I'm going to be checking out on the SmackDown watch party later on tonight. Andy Offord, thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here, Harry and all that. But especially thank you to Ron Hawthorne and John Stallman for the super chats today. Super, super generous. And also thanks to Steve for being my guest here. And also thank you for, making sure that everybody knows where Albert's at. Because here's the funny part. Now everyone's like, get at Albert, get at Albert. On Mondays, they're like, Albert's right, Dave, why don't you think so? Like, everyone jumps,
I figure they're playing both sides against the middle in order to get a reaction for sure.
Yeah, they just like riling me up, they just like riling me up by taking Albert's sides. But in reality, it's all a work. It's all a work. Because everyone knows Albert's not. Oh, wait, hold on. Before we go, one quick other thing. Another major thing I have a gripe about. Is when people say Hogan, held Randy Savage back or whatever like that. Because I'm like, Macho Man had a fantastic career. I'm like, he didn't hold nothing back. Okay, I feel that's insulting to Macho Man by saying that. That's how I personally feel.
And Hogan made him. I don't care what anybody says. Hogan made him. Sure, he had a great wrestling match with with Ricky Steamboat, right. But as far as a character, as far as a person who has malice and intent and threat, he was put over on a huge, huge stage by the biggest star in the world in Hulk Hogan. He was made. Sure, it wasn't handled the best, but that's still better than him winning it from anybody else. So stop it.
All right, well said. All right, guys, so thank you here. Again, John Stallman, Ron Hawthorne, thank you so much for the Super Chats today. It's been a blast. Thank you for being here. I'll check you guys on later tonight for SmackDown. Thank you for being here. And as always, and thanks again to Steve for being here. And as always, Dave